Putazos y Pendejadas Podcast.
What's going on, YouTube? It's PYP Boxing. It's David De Leon here with Mark Salinas. Mark, we got a big fight happening this weekend. It's Canelo versus Munguia. Big fight. Every time Canelo is fighting, it's a huge event. And it may not be the fight or the best fight for him at 168 pounds, but it's still a very good fight, and it should be very entertaining. Mark, let's start breaking this fight down, start talking about the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter. We'll go ahead and start with Canelo. Let's talk about some of the strengths that he brings into this fight versus Munguia. What do you see some of the advantages that he has?
Yeah, let's jump right into it, man. Let's talk about Canelo's strengths. Listen, he does everything well, right? They were talking to him earlier today about that. Obviously, he's one of the most powerful or the most powerful Mexican out there. So one of his strengths is power. And they asked him, are you the most powerful Mexican ever? He gave it to Pepino. He says, no, I'm second. Which is probably true, right? In his career, he probably reached that amount of power with how much he worked on his game. They asked him, the speed. He is one of the fastest Mexicans I've ever seen. And they said, you got the speed? Are you the fastest Mexican ever? He says, no, I give that one to Finito. And, but once again, I think that's a major strength of his, the power of the speed. I think in his lifetime and his career, he has maybe matched or close to a Finito Lopez type of speed with his combinations and stuff. And I even think he mimicked them sometimes with his beautiful combinations. And, and on and on. He's got it all across the board. Everything checks, top five Mexican, the speed, the power, the tenacity, Chavez's determination. He talked about it also. All of them across the board. And he named himself the main one, I believe, and the most important one in this fight, especially with a fighter like Munguia. He says he's the best defensive fighter that's ever been, and also the strongest Mexican fighter that there's ever been. And I believe all those to be true. So you multiply all those together, and those are multiple strengths.
Obviously, he does bring power into this fight. He's a very strong puncher, but he's really good to the body as well. And when we talk about his body punching, he's very accurate with that body punching. He can sneak that hook around the elbows and in between the guard. Even when you're trying to defend against his body shots, he's still landing them. I concur with the defense as well. He's got excellent defense, loves to roll with the punches. If he gets hit, has excellent head movement. It's hard to land a clean shot on Canelo. And even if you do, Mark, he has an excellent chin. I mean, he went 3 fights with Gennady Golovkin, one of the hardest punchers in the middleweight division at the time. Canelo never got knocked down. I don't recall ever seeing him getting buzzed. Let's talk about some of his flaws. What are some things that can be taken advantage of?
Well, we just said Canelo's the best defensive boxer who Mexico's ever produced. And it's true, man.
You
He
said
doesn't
that.
have a lot of flaws. he is, and I believe it to be true. And he said it, right? He said it today too. We all know he's top 5. He's top 5.
He's one of the best. One of the best, right? For sure.
He's one of the best, man. So how can we say that he has any flaws, right? We both agree he's one of the best ever. So he really doesn't have any flaws. What I have maybe are just a couple of concerns from the last few fights is all. Not big concerns, but some that maybe a young lion can take advantage of, like his punch output at the end of the fights now is a little bit lower. You can tell he's getting slower at the end of his career there. At the end of fights, I don't know if it's because he doesn't throw the beautiful combinations he used to throw before. The way I've seen it, in my opinion, he throws less combinations and more heavy combinations. And also, he doesn't use those beautiful feints anymore he used to throw. He just seems more sluggish and brawlish. He seems to have lost a step, but I don't think it's enough or anything to get beat by Munguia. But the last few fights, a little bit, a little sluggish down the stretch. Not many combinations, and really not creative anymore with those beautiful feints we used to see him with, in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, man. I really miss that Canelo. We need to see that one back.
When you say Canelo's output, his punch output is pretty low. I have to agree with that part. I think that's a big factor in this fight. He can be outworked, and we know against a fighter who throws a lot of punches, that can cause some problems for him, as it did with Bivol. And he throws every shot with power. You mentioned that as well. That caught up with him against Bivol. The first 3 or 4 rounds, he went hard at Bivol. He was throwing punches at the arms, elbows, shoulders, whatever he could hit. And I think that took a lot out of him. Loading up on every shot against a fighter who can outwork him might be an issue. Mark, let's move it on to Jaime Munguia, Canelo's opponent. Let's talk a little bit about his strengths. What do you see him bringing to this fight?
A very high motor, knows how to use his jab, knows how to blind you with his jab, knows how to disguise his right with the jab. Real good left hooks to the body. Very aggressive, and 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 he just doesn't slow down, man. He always comes in condition. That guy is an extremely hard worker. He's not going to be outworked by Canelo either. He is going to always outwork his opponent. Is that enough? We'll see.
He also throws a good jab to the body. I've seen him use that jab a lot. And in Canelo's 2 losses, even against Triple G, when he had some tough fights, all of those opponents were throwing jabs to the body. And we know Canelo likes to use a high guard sometimes. In addition to that head movement, he uses a really tight high guard. So that jab to the body was bringing Canelo's hands down. Munguia uses a jab to the body, and he's very consistent with it. I've got to say, I was looking at some tape of him, Mark. He throws really fast combinations. It's almost Aaron Pryor-esque. When he's throwing a punch, it's almost like the next punch is coming right at you after he hits you with the first one. I think those fast hands and quick combinations are a tool that can help him in this fight. One thing that Munguia doesn't get a lot of credit for is his chin. He hasn't faced a puncher of Canelo's quality, but Munguia has been caught clean by decent punchers who have knocked out other opponents. He's been hit clean, and we haven't seen him seriously hurt in the ring. So we know that he's bringing that into the fight. Mark, what are some flaws that you think Canelo can take advantage of?
Gosh, man. I mean, everybody. I mean, the obvious, right? Everybody's been talking about Munguia's poor defense, not just for the Canelo fight, for every single fight. Everybody knows that he's got the worst defense in the world. That's scary because, like you said, you were talking about his chin. The dude really has never been hit. We've never seen him hurt, so we can't really question his chin too much. But a lot of people question his resume, and Canelo's a hell of a person to have on your resume and touch your chin and test it. So we don't even know about that. This just the all-around bad defense. That's the biggest flaw. I mean, it's an all uphill battle with the defense like that, man.
Yeah, to touch on a little bit more of that defense, I noticed Munguia's hands are down a lot, Mark. When he's in close, with his opponents, he'll have his hands down by his waist. He also, when he's throwing those combinations that we talked about, he doesn't bring his guard back into position. He'll punch and bring the hand back down to his waist also. That's a very dangerous flaw to have with an opponent with the counter punching ability that Canelo has. Another thing that Munguia does, Mark, that I see, it's alluding to his defense. When he tries to move his head, he does the same thing. He leans to the right. And when he leans to the right, he has that left hand down by his waist. It's almost like a mini shoulder roll he's trying to do. And when he's doing that,
Right.
he's open for the over. Have you seen that? You've seen that, right?
Yeah, he wants to. I think I don't know what he's thinking when he does that. I'm thinking he's setting up his other punch, and he's not thinking
Yeah.
of
He's trying to come back with a straight right, but the left hand is not in position to protect him from the opponent's overhand right. I think that is going to be something to watch out for.
A big flaw that concerns me particularly with Munguia is his careless braveness. He's gonna carelessly go in there and try to knock this guy out. That's concerning to me because he's open about it too and talking about it on stage, and Freddie Roach is predicting it, and he's looking at him and he's smiling and he's winking, and I'm thinking he's gonna carelessly, not disrespectfully, but he's not gonna respect the power is what I wanted to say, and he's gonna carelessly go in there and go for a knockout. But when you're going for a knockout, you're risking something against Canelo and the best guy in the game, man. That's scary.
You know, I would be very surprised if that was Freddie Roach's plan, the game plan, and if that's what they're training to do. I'd be very surprised by that because I think Roach is a good offensive mind. But you know what? You may be onto something. Both fighters have a lot on the line as far as national pride. That could factor into hot blood and Munguia getting careless. So you might be onto something with that, Mark. Let's move on to some keys to victory. What do you think Canelo has to do to win this fight?
Well, Canelo just needs to be Canelo, even though I talked about his flaws in the last few fights and him not having the same output of punches, not throwing the creative uh, 28, 27-year-old Canelo, 25-year-old Canelo, creative feints and combinations. Despite all that stuff, he's still -6.5 in Las Vegas. So, keys to
Big,
victory,
big
man.
favorite.
Even with those flaws, he's got it. Don't be stupid and get into a a slugfest with this kid. He's young enough to touch you. Be smart, box him, and take home the victory.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to see Canelo do is to stay off the ropes. We saw him lean on the ropes a lot against Bivol, and Bivol took advantage of him. Similar fast hands, combination punching that Bivol used in that fight. You see some of that with Munguia. Backing Munguia up will also be a key to Canelo winning this fight. I don't like the way Munguia fights off the back foot. Again, he kind of panics and tries to brawl his way out when an opponent is pushing him back. But we've seen him push back by lesser fighters, and they had success against him. So Canelo would be wise to do the same. Of course, use that accurate jab and that overhand right. Look for it because Munguia has still having problems with keeping that left hand up. What about Munguia, Mark? How do you see Munguia winning this fight?
Now that's the fun question, right? How does Munguia win
A
this fight?
million dollar question, man.
That's the fun one. That's what we want to do because that's because we know Canelo's gonna win, but it's fun to figure out, okay, what does this guy need to do, man? And I'm gonna stick to what I've been saying. I talked to a few pro boxers in Mexico, and they're in the Mexican fight game hard. So I listen to what they got to say, and they're pros. Um, and they are in the same promotional company as Canelo's opponents, so they know a lot about it. They've all been talking about it. So, I think what a lot of them are saying is two things he's got to do. One, he's got to piss him off at some point in the fight, right? Well, maybe Oscar De La Hoya helped him a little bit with that today, but you got to get in Canelo's head. There was a few fights in particular that they pointed out that pissed him off, and they were clear losses. Um, he got really frustrated against Floyd Mayweather with his little antics and just the way he is in the ring and his cocky attitude. He pissed him off and missed a lot of punches, and then he just started missing wildly, and that's when you know you got him pissed off when he just started really messing up. Couple of times with Triple G when he had some his worst moments with Triple G was when he lost his head. When he loses his temper and gets out of his game plan, he can get touched. Um, Bival really pissed him off late eighth round, ninth round, 10th round when he couldn't get his way, couldn't crack the code, couldn't get in there and beat him down. He was getting frustrated and just punched in the face and even forgetting to move his head because he was so pissed off. Luckily, he's got a granite chin to stand those monstrous punches with Bival. But keys to victory, somehow maybe try to get him mad, make it rough and tough to get him mad on the inside. Maybe fight a little bit like you did with Derevchenko, stand up tall on your toes, use that long distance that I never really saw him use with anybody else but Derevchenko. He boxed him really well, at a distance, at a good pace. Maybe if he does a perfect game plan like that as well. Other than that, I say piss him off, make it a dirty fight to push for the best.
Yeah, I think a couple of keys to victory from Munguia are going to be outworking Canelo. Again, Canelo is a natural counterpuncher, so that means he waits on his opponents to throw punches so he can let off his own. I think Munguia can outwork him because he has the faster combinations. He throws more punches per round. But a really important caveat to that is not to stay too long within the pocket. Do your work, get out of range. So he's going to need to dip in and dip out. And he did a little bit better job of that when he was fighting John Ryder. John Ryder, of course, took a beating against Canelo, so he may not have been the fighter that he was, but John Ryder was a solid fighter. Munguia went in when he threw his punches. He used to throw 6-7 punch combinations. Against Ryder, you saw 3 and 4s, right? And he would get out of the way, stay out of range, and then work his way back in. I think that's going to be the key here. Don't stay too long. Do your work. Get out of range. Also, the very just textbook things. Bring your guard back to position after you throw a punch. Don't leave your hands by your waist. To end it, just don't be predictable. With your head movement, don't always dip to the right, bob and weave, or get out of range so you don't have to do the same movement with your head. Canelo's going to read that early. He's going to take advantage of it if he sees it in the fight. Final predictions, Mark. Are you going against Vegas here, or do you think Canelo pulls this off and how?
I think it's highly unlikely that Munguia wins. I hope he does because the story would be nice. I mean, it's really hard to bet on Canelo or Munguia, right? It's too big of a difference there to make any money. But there's this one bet. If you bet $1, you win $1.25. So for every 100, you win 125. But it's really cool. They put together a TKO, a KO, and a DQ. So if any of those happen for Canelo, you bet $1, you win $1.25.
Oh, I'm looking at
That's not a bad
Caesars.
bet.
It's plus 175, bro, on Caesars
Oh,
right
it's
now.
changed now. Oh, there you go. Now
Yeah.
that is the bargain bet of the weekend. That
What
is the
about the
bargain bet.
over?
I'm doing that. Yes. I would do
What about
that. That is a great pick.
what about the over under, Mark? I'm looking at it right now. It looks like the over under set at, well, they have a 8.5 rounds. Over is minus 380, under plus 260. And then it looks like the most is 10.5. Over is minus 230, under plus 175.
I would go over. I would go with Munguia to go over on that. I'll give him that.
Over 10 and a half?
10 and a half. That's a long
That's
way
hard,
down
right?
there.
That's hard, bro. I don't know. If he
Man,
makes it
I
that
think
far.
I think the safest bet is the DQ TKO KO plus 175. That's a great bet. That's a great bargain.
Yeah, that under is hard. I might stay away from that one. I'm gonna go with Canelo by KO. I just, it's hard to change your stripes. Mark, you one of the pros you mentioned, or one of the strengths you mentioned for Munguia was having Freddie Roach in his corner. I agree with you. I think Freddie Roach has improved him in that one training camp. I just don't think 2 training camps is enough. Those flaws are still going to show up, whether it's in the middle rounds or late in the fight. I think they're going to, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Munguia's not an old dog, but he's 27 years old. He's been fighting like that for a long time. I see Canelo taking him out. I would be very surprised if Munguia sees the end of this fight. And if he does, I think if Munguia goes the distance with Canelo, that's still kind of a win for him, depending on how he fights, of course. No, you don't think so?
Yeah. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think he would be highly revered in Mexico if he puts up a good fight, goes the distance. I think you're looking at a man
That's all
who's
he needs to do. That's all he needs to do.
right.
Even
Man.
if he puts up a good fight and gets knocked out late, I think he's still revered.
Yeah,
It's
if
just
he has some good
Canelo.
moments, right? If he has some good
Yeah,
moments in the fight
and
and it's
goes
really test
down
Canelo,
very. You put a man that's respected and revered like Jaime Munguia is in Mexico. All you have to do is try your best. If you go out there, you try your best, and you get beat, the country's gonna love you for trying your best.
for trying your best. That's exactly.
He's and
Yes.
he's that type of dude that will try. He's gonna try.
Well, Mark, I think we're going to wrap it up on that note, buddy. I'm excited about this fight. The undercard is pretty bad, but the main event is what people will be tuning in for at the all-time high price of 89.99. I'm still on the fence of whether I'm going to order at home or just catch it at a bar. We'll see what happens there, but I'm definitely going to try to watch this fight. My man, good luck with you in Houston and Red Owl Promotions. I know you're going to be doing your thing over there. Bring all that good content home, and we'll be sharing it with all of our subscribers. Any last words before we head out?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Oscar, do yourself a favor. Call Arnold Barbosa and the homies from the San Gabriel Valley, dog. Get at Canelo, homie. Call Arnold and the homies. In Montebello, call them. San Gabriel Valley. I got them on my IG. I'll let them know. Peace.